Welcome to Class 3 of Mindful Eating. Intention and Attention. In this section, we'll tune in to the idea that what you practice gets stronger. The truth is, many of us feel like we don't have time for one more practice. And if we're adding mindful eating to the mix of things, we may begin to feel the edge of perfectionism or hear ourselves thinking or saying things like, I'm not enough, I'm not doing it right. Or worse, turning to self-loathing or self-judgment. We'll use our practice to fine-tune our vision, our intention, to understand that mindful eating is not just one more thing to do, but mindful eating and mindfulness has a tremendous value, that this practice is actually essential to our self-care. And by taking care of ourselves this way, we are then able to do the work we're called to do. We're able to be more present and mindful in our jobs, families, and lives. Before we begin, allow yourself some time to get properly settled, comfortable, and to remove any distractions. Treat this class as a gift to yourself, this time as an investment in your self-care and well-being. It may be helpful for you to have a journal and a writing instrument nearby. Let's settle in with some breath work first. Now you've been tasked to practice tuning into your breath and your body's sensations, especially when you're feeling the edge of frustration or annoyance, using that as a cue to pause and to tune into your breath. You've also been tasked with doing mindful breathing. Take a moment and reflect. How have those practices been going for you? Do they feel like one more thing to do or that you should be doing? Do you push it off because you find like you don't have time or that it doesn't really make a difference? Well, what if you explored your attitudinal quality towards these practices? What if they became precious gifts, jewels or treasures that could power you and fuel you through the rest of your day? Let's take 5 minutes together and practice some mindful breathing. All right, let's do this. 5 minutes of breath awareness, not because we have to, but because we get to. Feel your feet on the floor. Your hips and legs supported by your seat. And sit tall with dignity and respect. And turn your awareness now to the sensations of each inhale and exhale. It's totally normal to feel a little hesitation or to even question if you're doing these kinds of practices correctly. You are. And every time you find your attention drifting or you hear that internal questioning voice, just kindly, gently, respectfully, bring your attention back again to your inhales and your exhales. Finding again this natural rhythm of receiving in-breath energy, life, and of exhaling, giving and outpouring, a releasing and letting go. Lifting your chest ever so slightly to make a little bit more space for each inhale. Allow your head to tip forward slightly, chin drawing in gently towards your throat. And follow the path from the moment of intake of your next inhale, noticing where your breath travels, the sustenance of the breath, the quality of your breath, your response to the breath. And do the same for your exhale. Watching with your mind's eye your exhale exit your body. Notice the path it travels, the length, the energy behind your exhale. And if it works for you, feeling the gentle spaces, the little pockets of rest between each breath. These sweet, quiet spaces, nectars of nourishment. And so connected to your breath. Connect also to the sentiment of your attitude. Without any negativity or self-loathing or questioning. Just notice the quality of your attitude. And see if you can pull back the curtains to reveal a more softer sense of appreciation for the simplicity of just being present with your mind and your body. Giving full attention to your attitude of what you're practicing. Practicing making space. Practicing healing. Practicing self-care so these attributes can grow stronger or more vibrant. And now just take a favorite breath in. And as you exhale, slowly begin to move your body. Again, gently reawakening, coming back into your surroundings, back into this present moment. And reflect as you transition now into taking on more content and discussions. Reflect how perhaps this time your practice shifted, taking note of your attitudinal awareness, and consider your intention. Why is it that you are so passionate now about mindful eating? What value does it serve? Certainly, it'll help you be healthier and perhaps freer from the yo-yo or negative effects of dieting. Perhaps it'll help you be freed from the chaos of emotional or environmental triggers and cravings. But there's another layer of value. For when you free yourself, you're also freeing those around you. The people you love, the people you're with. Practicing mindfulness is an ongoing practice. And more than just bringing kindness or sweetness to your mindful eating, you're also bringing intentionality. Let's take a look at the things you wrote in your journal. The reasons why you were eating. when you ate, what you ate, how much you ate, and where you used your energy. Consider how much attention you gave these questions to your mindful eating practice. And what was your overall attitude about these types of questions and experiences? How many times or how likely are you now to practice being mindful throughout your day? Do you notice when you have a first edge of irritation or some kind of emotional discomfort or craving that you are pausing and taking a few conscious breaths and identifying what it is your body and mind actually need? And how's it going with giving your hunger a number on the hunger scale? Are you practicing being aware of how full you are when you're eating? Things like using the number scale, stopping when you feel satisfied or full, as opposed to stopping when you feel stuffed or bloated, and eating at the first signs of hunger instead of waiting until you're ravenous or starving. If you wonder if you're doing these things right or if you have time to do them, remember those are also part of the human condition. Set the intention that the value of these practices is that not only are you serving yourself, but you'll be better able to serve those you love. Mindful eating could be used as a double-edged sword. You could use this as a way to inject even more self-judgment or self-loathing or self-doubt. When in reality, we want this to be a practice of loving kindness, a practice that is filled with almost like playfulness and curiosity. So as we move forward, keep in mind your attitudinal quality towards the practices we're doing. I like to think of having an attitude of gratitude and remembering that these practices are essential to our self-care and how we can do the work we're meant to do in our lives. We're all feeling like we should be more or do more. But at the end of the day, what we practice becomes stronger. So if when you're practicing your conscious breath awareness, if you're practicing feeling irritated or self-doubt, then that's what's going to grow stronger. Take a moment now and write down or contemplate what your vision is around your mindful eating practice. Let's take another look at a practice we can use to help us clarify questions around hunger and food. Asking ourselves these three questions. Question 1, what do I want? Question 2, what do I need? And question 3, what do I have? Is a great foundational place to start when considering how, when, what, and where to eat. Let's look at the first one. What do I want? This is very much housed up in our mind. We have to decide on a specific taste and texture, even temperature. Do we want heavy food or light food? Or is there a specific nutrient I've been craving? Pause for a moment and reflect upon times when you've worked with your mind deciding on specific tastes, textures, temperatures, specific nutrients that you're craving. Question 2. What do I need? What do you need to know to help decide what you need to eat. This is about creating balance and moderation, about meeting your personal health needs, and knowing your nutritional information. Think about it. Do you have any dietary restrictions that you're aware of? Or any specific needs, nutritionally speaking, that you're trying to attain? Or what about balance and moderation? Which way do you tend to go when you're filling your plate? Question 3. What do I have? Now, this is very much a practice of gratitude, as well as surveying your options. Part A, planning and preparation will really help here. Things like keeping healthy and convenient and appealing foods on hand, bringing foods with you to work or trips, and keeping basic cooking ingredients on hand. This is also about surveying the choices available. For example, when you go to a restaurant or a gathering, and making your best choice out of your options available. This is also about listening to your hunger and fullness cues. Remember, all of your favorite foods will always be available again. When faced with these questions, can you see how your attitude would play a pivotal point in the relationship to being a more mindful eater? If you're concerned about your favorite food is scarce and you'll never be able to have it again, how that would influence your choices and attitude about fueling and feeding your body, and about listening and responding in a compassionate way to your hunger and fullness signals. Versus if your attitude about your favorite foods, for example, is that they are plentiful, they'll always be available, you can always resource them, may make it a lot more easier to listen to your hunger and fullness signals, and also to respond to the messages your body is giving you in a more mindful and healthy way. Or let's look at another example. Think about a time when you've been at a restaurant or a gathering. Is your mindset to default into this is a treat? It doesn't matter what I eat. I can eat anything. This doesn't count. There's no point in trying to stay on track because you're at this restaurant or you're at this family gathering, for example. What if instead your attitude was, I have the ability and time and awareness to survey my options and to make selections that will fuel my body in a way that will give me the energy I need to do the things I want to do and things that will help the people I love as well. And one last example with planning and preparation. Does this feel like a chore or something that you feel like you just never have enough time to do properly? How could you shift your attitude to be able to practice giving yourself the time and space to make this food preparation happen, to make having healthy and convenient food choices available, fresh food that's appealing, and being prepared to have that food ready to go with you to work, for example, or on a trip, and even just having the essential cooking ingredients always on hand? Do you see how that could be a pivotal shift in giving you the tools to make this not something you should be doing or that you'll never be able to do well enough, but empowering you to realize that what you do practice is what you do become? Let's take ourselves on a little journey, on an imagined food adventure. Let's pretend that we're at a dinner together. We're sitting around the table and we've all brought something to share. There's enough food for all of us. I want you first to begin to notice your body right now, right here. Feel your breath and allow yourself to arrive at our imagined shared meal. Practice checking in now, right now, with your hunger and fullness number, and make a quiet mental note of it. And now check in with yourself and identify, what are you hungry for? And what do you need? Asking yourself, what do I want? And what do I need? The question of what do I have in front of us is important when we're faced with multiple food choices, real or imagined. When we see what do we have in front of us, imagine, visualize this full meal in front of you right now. When you take a moment and identify, what do I have? This question will help us sift through the multiple food choices. It allows us to pause, and it allows us to intentionally choose what we will enjoy now and what we will enjoy, how we feel having eaten it when we're finished eating. What do I have? This question is important when you are faced with multiple food choices, in this case imagined, or the next time you're sharing a meal. By asking, what do I have? It'll allow you to pause and then intentionally choose what you will enjoy in the moment, and also enjoy how you feel after you have finished eating. It's important to be aware of distractions. As humans going about our days, we have this shared responsibility to be in charge of our inner experiences, to practice using our breath, to practice pausing, and practice coming into the moment, and most importantly, inviting a sense of ease. The next time you are enjoying a meal, allow yourself to take time. Let go of the habit or need, the inner experience to rush your experience of eating. Practice gratitude for all of the elements that were involved with bringing food to your table. If we're imagining sharing a meal together right now, we give thanks to the farmers, to the grocers, to the food preparers, the cooks. We give thanks to the earth for where the food came from. We give thanks to each other for having this time to connect. We give thanks to the food for being a source of nourishment for our bodies. Now imagine or visualize yourself creating a speed bump on your plate. And what I mean by this is like maybe just a portion of your food on the plate, or a piece of food that you identify as your speed bump. And this piece or place on your plate serves as a reminder to slow down and check in with your fullness before you continue to move past that point. Remember, it takes our body at least 20 minutes to identify fullness signals. So we need to slow down our chewing. We need to slow down the act of eating to give ourselves and our body that time to deliver those messages and sensations. Let me ask you this. If we're pretending that we're sharing a meal together and we decide to read the newspaper or to look at social media on our phones, do you think it's possible to eat mindfully if we are shifting attention away from the food into something more external? No, of course it's not. Pay attention to your habits. In our imagined situation, we can pretend that we're enjoying good conversation, that we're taking time, that we are allowing ourselves to digest, and that we are connecting on a human and emotional level. The next time you are going to share a meal, either with yourself or with others, be very aware of where your attention is. Are you practicing giving thanks to the food? Are you practicing paying attention to what you have in front of you? And are you identifying what you need to eat to nourish your body? And are you closely attuned to how you will feel when you've finished eating? Are you staying present throughout the process, the whole experience of your meal? Let's take a moment and watch Shauna Shapiro in her video where she explains what she sees as the 3 core components to mindfulness. These are intention, attention, and attitude. Let's take a look.
What led you to this path of focusing on mindfulness and how it can be applied to everyday life? I'm always so interested in people's stories and how they wind up where we are today.
Yeah, thank you. I'm interested too in people's stories. And for me, I was studying at Duke University and I was studying mind-body medicine, and it was kind of the whole revolution of psychoneuroimmunology. And there's a lot of research saying, think happy thoughts and be positive, and then your natural killer cells will go up and your immune system will go up and it's good for you. And I was 19 and I didn't always feel happy. I felt sometimes really lost and confused and lonely, and I didn't really know what to do with that. And it felt inauthentic to kind of always have to be happy and think positive thoughts. And yet on the flip side, I was like, oh crap, I'm going to get cancer or something because, all this research is showing think happy thoughts and it leads to a stronger immune functioning. And that summer I was studying on a NOLS course, a National Outdoor Leadership School in New Mexico. And you go out into nature for a month and just live simply. And my father, who is a long-term meditator, had just received John Kabat-Zinn's book, it was Wherever You Go, There You Are. And he said, why don't you take this with you on your backpacking trip? I said, no, it's a hardcover. I don't want, too much weight. Yeah. And he said, why don't you try? So I took it, and while I was living in nature really simply, I started reading about mindfulness. And it was one of those moments where everything in my body just said, yes, this is truth. This feels like truth in my own experience. And from that moment forward, a lot shifted in my life, and I started studying and exploring mindfulness and ended up going to Thailand and Nepal to really study deeper and immerse myself. And when I came back, I said, I want to keep studying, and I want to study mindfulness. What kind of program could I become part of? And it seemed like clinical psychology was the best choice. Although I remember when I started, they said, if you ever want to go into academia, you better stop studying this meditation stuff. If you want to be taken seriously. And I had an advisor, Gary Schwartz, who really believed in studying what you were passionate about. He said, if this is what you love, if this is what's really true in your heart, do it. He said, but learn how to do statistics and rigorous methodology too, because you're going to be held to a higher standard. So that was it. And it's amazing looking back. That was 1996 that I started my PhD program. And now mindfulness is so much a part of mainstream culture, but also medicine and psychology.
I was noticing that some of the dissertations and things that you've worked on have been about bringing mindfulness into professional fields, medicine, law, maybe law enforcement. What are some things that you've seen as far as the benefits that go into those fields, and also some of the concerns that those fields may be expressing when it comes to actually having a practice?
Yeah. So, in terms of the benefits, one thing I've been really interested in is compassion and empathy, because a lot of the professionals I work with are physicians, nurses, and psychotherapists. And this program that I'm a professor in is a master's program in counseling psychology. And so, really, what I've been interested in is how do we best train people in these healing and helping professions? How do we cultivate compassion? How do we cultivate presence and empathy? And mindfulness is an obvious way to train the mind and the heart to be more present, to be more compassionate, and also to be more compassionate to ourselves. I really, as my practice has deepened, have come to recognize how important that piece is. How I think in the beginning of my, quote, spiritual practice or my meditation practice, I was very disciplined and really wanted to do it right. And so there was a striving involved and a real, almost rigidity and a lot of self-judgment. And what I began to realize is I was using my practice as just one more way to be perfect, one more way to beat myself up, one more way to see how I didn't measure up. And so this piece of self-compassion and self-care, I think, is an essential part of the practice. And so when I'm training healthcare professionals, when I'm training physicians or people in the helping professions, I really like to emphasize that mindfulness is not just about attention. It's not just another practice or a cognitive behavioral technique. It's attention with a certain intention. The intention to be curious and kind and compassionate and accepting of whatever my experience is, even if it's not how I want it to be, even if I'm not how I want myself to be, I can hold all of it with kindness. So that's really how I'm working with mindfulness and working with it with professionals. And you asked about kind of one of the dangers or pitfalls, and I think there's two. One is in our culture, non-doing is not really valued. And so a lot of my students will say, I'm so busy, I have so many people to help, I have a family, I have this career I'm trying to begin, I don't have time for this practice. And so I think one piece is just beginning to help people value it and understand that this is actually essential to being fully alive and essential to taking care of yourself and taking care of your patients. And so I say to them, did you have time to brush your teeth today? Mm-hmm. Did you go to the bathroom today? And they look at me, yes, of course. So I kind of view a practice in the similar vein that this is about self-care and it should be valued in that same way. So that's one piece, is just finding the time and really valuing it. The other piece that's challenging is getting back to that perfectionism. I find a lot of my students, most of them are women in the counseling program, there's this way in which it's never enough. They're never doing it right, and they're not okay. This sense that I'm not enough, I'm not okay, and this real self-judgment, and I would even say self-loathing. And it's so sad to even use that word and that languaging. And yet, as I experience it in my own life and as I am more authentic with them and they're able to be more honest with me, there's a real sense that I'm not okay. That we're all feeling that same way, of this sense of I should be more generous, more patient, more kind. And what mindfulness can do, I think, at its deepest level is start breaking down that ego identity that's saying you're not okay. However, one of the dangers with mindfulness is it becomes one more way to, with a really laser beam attention, criticize yourself.
And I find that to be the case a lot with some of my people in my cohort, or maybe myself as well. We'll be in a meditation, I'll immediately judge right in the middle of it. Like, oh, I shouldn't have thought that. Or,
Right.
oh, my mind just went off. Or, oh, you're not paying attention to the sounds like you should be.
Right.
Isn't that part of the natural human condition, though, as well? Just to kind of always want to do things the way they're supposed to be done.
I think there's a underlying anxiety
Yeah.
that a lot of us have of it's supposed to be this way and I'm not quite meeting up, or there's some right way out there and I just can't figure it out, and if I just think a little harder, then I'll find the perfect way and then I'll be happy. Instead of actually trusting that by just being with things as they are and resting, that's where happiness is found, not something out here. So one of my teachers said to me, it's one of the best teachings, she said, when you notice your mind wandering off, notice how you come back. Notice the tone of your voice. Notice the quality of your attention as you come back. Are you saying, darn it, Shauna, what's wrong with you? Why can't you do this? Or are you saying, oh, hooray, I'm back. And just celebrating that you're back. Because the moment your mind has wandered off, the moment you know that it's wandered off, you're already back. One of my students last week, she goes, Dr. Shapiro, it was really interesting this week. My mind wandered off. I noticed it, and I said, welcome home. The moment she noticed it, that was her response, instead of, what's wrong with you? And so I really believe it's how you're attending, how you're practicing, that's important. It's not just the practice. So many people kind of sit down and they get in their posture, and it's like, okay, now I'm meditating. And this is how you do it, and this is good for me. And there's, we know about neuroplasticity. What you practice is what becomes stronger. If I'm practicing this rigid, striving, judgmental, I have to do it right, those are the pathways that are becoming stronger. And so for me, the practice is, am I cultivating softness in my heart? Am I cultivating clear seeing? Am I cultivating kindness, flexibility, ease, curiosity, discernment? That's what I want to be practicing.
And it's funny you say that, because when I think of that, I think of the typically maybe Eastern point of view. And I've been reading a lot of articles where they talk about the American point of view, even when it comes to spirituality as a whole, that it's something we need to strive for. I need to be spiritual within 5 years in order to reach that goal of being, this spiritual person who everyone's going to admire or whatnot. And I think that that's a really beautiful way of discerning whether or not how we're looking at this as a practice.
Right. We're looking at it as a way to change and to make things different so we can finally be happy, instead of a way to actually embrace life and to actually know something about what it means to be alive, to actually feel that aliveness moving through us. And children teach us perfectly, being with babies, being with my grandpa right now who's in transition and dying. Feeling his aliveness and his presence and his joyfulness is, for me, the most exquisite teaching. That's what this practice is about. When I'm sitting, resting into that and holding all the other things that arise, such as a lot of sadness for me right now, a lot of grief and some anger at life as it is. But holding all that in this aliveness and really feeling it instead of trying to change it or tune it out. And that's, I think, the beauty of the practice, is that whatever's happening in this moment is okay. There's so much space.
I think a lot of us think that being spiritual means having to do something different than who we actually are. Yeah. And so I think that that's, for me, it was really tricky for me to understand how mindfulness could actually be spiritual. Does that make sense?
Yeah. For me, the word spiritual often has so many different meanings and baggage for different people, and there's almost like a way that it moves me outside of my experience. For me, at the deepest level, being spiritual means being alive, fully alive here, in this moment, in this body. And I sometimes say to my students, they'll be sitting there in class and we'll be talking about mindfulness, and I rarely use the word spiritual. I try to keep it as academic as possible. But we'll be sitting there and I say, do you know what it means to be alive right now? Sometimes I see your eyes glazed over and your body doesn't go anywhere, but I know your mind's gone. Your body's just sitting here. It's this empty shell. I want to see you fully alive and embodied and inhabiting your aliveness and feeling it in each moment as best you can. And that to me is being spiritual.
Just to tag off of that, do you have any idea what you want to focus on for the upcoming conference, the ITP ATP conference, as far as your speech? Have you thought about it at all? Maybe something that's new or something that you've been kind of marinating in?
Well, I'm delighted to be part of this conference, and I think it's so important weaving together different ideas of spirituality and psychology and really inquiring into what does spirituality mean, what are the promises, what are the pitfalls, what is our vision, what is our intention. And I think for me, what I'd like to talk about, because I'll be speaking about mindfulness, is really, really inquiring into what is mindfulness and looking at the essential components, which I believe involve intention. Again, what is our vision? Why are we even practicing? Right? So it doesn't just become one more thing to do. Our intention, our attention. Mm-hmm. Where am I placing my attention? What am I cultivating? Where do I want to focus attention? And then our attitude. What is the attitudinal quality I bring to my attentional focus? Which is what I've been talking a bit with you about, is am I bringing compassion and curiosity and ease to my attention, or am I striving and rigid? As an example, when I first went to my very first retreat, it was in Thailand at a monastery called Wat Suan Mok. And I didn't speak Thai, and the monk didn't speak English, a little bit, but not very much. And so I understood that I was supposed to feel the breath coming in and out through my nose. And I just graduated from Duke University, and I felt like I could kind of make my mind do what I wanted it to. And I sat there for days upon days, and I couldn't do it. Maybe for a couple of breaths, and my mind would wander. And I became so frustrated and so kind of judgmental of myself. Why can't I do this? What's wrong with my mind? And then judgmental of them, like, why are they just sitting there doing this? Like, what's the point? And, it was hot, and it was 110 degrees, and mosquitoes were biting me, and, that whole thing of non-harming, so you couldn't swat them, and, getting more and more irritated. Yeah. And a monk from London came, and I said, please, can I have an interview with you? And so we sat, and I told him my experience, and he said, oh, you're not practicing mindfulness. You're practicing impatience and anger and judgment and self-righteousness, and those are what are getting stronger. He said the attitude with which you pay attention is essential. And that really stayed with me. And in my academic work, and when I write about mindfulness, even in the scholarly journals, I talk about attitude, about kindness, about care, about acceptance, and that this is an essential part of mindfulness. It's not just some add-on, right, just to be sweet. It's actually essential. And so in the conference, I really want to be nuanced in our understanding of what mindfulness is and talk about these three elements of intention, attention, and attitude.
In her video, Shauna Shapiro explained to us the three core components to mindfulness: intention, attention, and attitude. Take a few moments now and contemplate your intention, attention, and attitude towards your mindful eating practice. For if what we practice gets stronger, it's important to have clarity around your intention. What value? What is the reason for you to eat mindfully? Is it your health, your well-being? Is it so that you can be more connected and present and available, stronger for those that you love? And what about attention? How do you practice your attention around mindful eating? Is it something that you just casually do when you feel like it or when it makes sense? Is it something that ebbs and flows? Or are you consistently aware of your choices and your response to your choices? Are you consistently aware of your body's hunger and fullness signals? And are you practicing responding to your body's needs, whether they be physical, emotional, or social, in a loving and compassionate way. And what about your attitude? What attributes about your attitude are you bringing to your mindful eating practice? Take some time, write down in your journal, or think about your attitude, your attention, and your intention. Before we meet again, I want you to practice asking these questions before you eat. Am I physically hungry? How hungry am I? Go ahead and practice giving your hunger a number and practice giving your fullness a number as well. Before you eat, practice asking, what do I need? What do I want? And what do I have? The second invitation I have for you is to eat with intention and attention. I want you to practice gratitude for everything that went into bringing the food to your table. I want you to ask, how full do I want to be when I'm done? Practice using the speed bump technique and check in with your level of fullness midway through your meal. To eat with intention and attention, practice being aware of any distractions while you eat. Allow yourself to shift between socializing and eating. The invitation again is to practice 5 minutes or even more of intentional breathing. And yes, you have time, and yes, you're doing it right. Please practice and explore different ways to fill your true needs. Sometimes we just need a hug or some time off or time alone instead of needing to reach for food. So please explore different ways to fill your true needs. And last but not least, please take some time to consider what can support your daily practice of mindfulness.